You're welcome to yet another episode of Africa Talks Tech. Today we're going to be talking building a tech startup, and we've got a very exciting guest on the show today. Sam, who are we going to be talking to on the show today?
Oh, hi, Kazim. Yeah, today we're going to be talking to Ben Blaine, who's based out of South Africa. He's got a vast range of experience, lots of energy, interest in hobbies, even talks about the fact that he's got kittens. But I don't think we are going to ask him about that in the show. And in today's show, we're going to bring you another episode of a tech entrepreneur sharing their lessons. So, Kazim, I guess it's time to lay back, kick back, and enjoy this episode of Africa Talks Tech.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Africa Talks Tech. Like we usually do on the show, starting with introductions first. My name is Kazim Adegwega. I'm based here in Nigeria, and I work for Icon Systems Limited, based in Lagos. I don't do this alone, so I do this with my very good friend and partner, Sam.
Oh, hi, I'm Sam Erskine. I'm based out in the UK, but originally my roots are in Ghana, West Africa. So I'm a digital native and also an African native roaming in Europe, in the UK. So welcome to the show. And today we've got a very special guest, Kazim, and he's from South Africa. So, Kazim, who do we have on the show?
Yes, we have Ben Blaine with us today on the show. Nice to meet you, Ben, and thank you for joining us on the show today.
Nice to meet you two guys.
So, how about we kick things off with you introducing yourself to our audience?
Cool, let me give that a go. My name is Ben Blaine. I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa. I did mechanical engineering after high school at Stellenbosch University, and I got sucked into the world of tech startups. And I worked as kind of an employee with also early stage equity shares in companies. So kind of thought of myself as a founder, but was really an employee for about 11 years. And yeah, helped build two of the things that kind of worked out were SnapScan and OfferZen, which are South African tech companies, one being a payments company, another a recruitment platform. And June last year, I've kind of gone out on my own, and I'm trying I took a bit of a half a sabbatical and trying out my own business ventures and seeing if I can get something off the ground on my own as a founder this time. As a fool.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm definitely a founder this time. There's no one else here.
So I guess I'll kick off with the first question for you, Ben. I looked up your profile right on LinkedIn, and it was quite a very impressive one. I mean, you founded a number of startups, and I also looked up your website, one of your websites now, the Air Guitar Academy. So I'm
Yes.
curious to know how that works, but maybe later, during the show, so you can tell us just a little bit about how that works. But let's kick
Okay.
off with your summary to where you are now. Your journey so far and where you are now. What does it really mean to you?
That's a really hard question because I like to think in many different ways about the world. I like to read fantasy books. I like to read sci-fi books. So I've got some kind of like a fantasy version of my life, a sci-fi version of my life, a business version of my life. But and so I did high school. I loved drama, but I thought I really need to do the sciences and the maths stuff as well because it seemed like I was able to pass those things. When it got to university, I kind of looked through the university menu of things you could do. And got to the end, and it was like mechanical engineering was the only one that I actually understood what it was. Everything else just seemed like I was like, things don't seem real to me. So I ended up doing mechanical engineering, which I was very grateful to be able to do straight out of high school. I graduated from that. Like I said, I got into these tech startups very much so because I knew Philip and Milan Joubert, who I kind of grew up with, and they were obsessed with starting tech startups. I knew very little about it, and I didn't really care much for starting businesses at the time. But they kind of asked me to join and help out with a few things. And in the early days, that was actually working with Mixit, which was a mobile chat app, which was around about 10 years before WhatsApp. Mixit was acquired for R500 million at the time, and we kind of consulted them on a payments platform and and there was another project which I wasn't part of, but I was part of the payments project. So suddenly, mechanical engineering straight into like, okay, learn everything you can about mobile payments. So just diving into research. It was about the time that M-Pesa kind of got really big, I think, in Kenya, and was like in all these Harvard reviews. So everyone was very excited about how mobile money was going to take over South Africa. And with Mixit, we had 10 million users. So we thought we could do some really interesting things. Yeah, we built a thing called Mixit Money at Mixit, and I learned a lot there. Like and I had no gauge as to where I fitted in. I just, if it was about the purchase of Mixit, I was like, cool, how can I help? And if it was like speaking to a customer, I was like, cool, how can I help? And I remember I actually worked sitting on a printer for about 3 months because there weren't any chairs available. And then one day someone came to me and was like, don't you need a chair? And I was like, no, I need more users. I don't need a chair. Come to me with ideas for getting users. After Mixit Money, I got involved in SnapScan, which was part of the group that I was involved with. It was part of the Fire ID group of companies. And I actually left the payments kind of division there, went away, and they started SnapScan, and they asked me to come back and figure out like how to get people using SnapScan. So I don't know if you know what SnapScan is. It's an app you can use to scan QR codes and pay with your phone in South Africa. And I think what was funny at the time was, again, I was quite naive. And the bank that we were partnered with, Standard Bank, wanted us to use a wallet system called Instant Money. And none of the shops wanted to use us. They were like, just give us our money in our bank accounts. So I kind of said, you know what, I'll just sign up all these accounts in my name, use my ID number, and get the money in our SnapScan business account, and then I'll manually go in the nighttime and EFT them the money every night. But I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. So after about 2 months, the CEO at the time found out, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is not cool. Like this is not how it's supposed to. You're supposed to be using the Instant Money wallets. You can't sign up random merchants in your name. This is like potentially bad. This is a bad thing, basically. But I think that's kind of how I roll. I see a problem that a customer has, and I'm like, I'm going to make that problem go away by myself. Yeah, then onto OfferZen. OfferZen is a developer marketplace. So you can go on OfferZen and you can find developers to hire for full-time work. It's now the biggest marketplace in Africa for software developers, and it's expanding into Europe, across Europe. And there I kind of started again from the bottom, also with Philip and Milan as founders there. And I was really, at the start, I was doing a bit of marketing, and then they asked me to solely focus on the developer experience. So every single developer that signed up to OfferZen, we curate the profiles. So I would have to go through 100 profiles every day. And then I would kind of, I'd be like, okay, now we accept maybe 10 people out of 100 for the platform. And then I would kind of introduce those people to myself. And I'd be like, now here's your talent advisor. And then I would, each developer on the platform actually gets someone who helps them through the job search process. So again, I just acted as, like I did with SnapScan merchants, I acted as the entire experience. I designed whatever tools I needed, email systems, any tech tools that I needed just to do the job on my own. And then moved on within OfferZen onto other projects, specifically around community building, which was a particularly fun time in my life. I kind of was given a mandate to just build communities, run hackathons, go to all the meetups in South Africa, figure out how to sponsor all the tech conferences. We have these like really fun t-shirts at OfferZen that we distribute to people, to developers in South Africa for free. So we were like distributing those t-shirts through all the meetups. So there were these interesting periods, like for 2 months, I went to every single meetup in South Africa and met every single developer who organizes a meetup in South Africa and that kind of stuff. And then the last phase at OfferZen, year 4 and 5, we got a deal with Investec Bank. So coming back to banking, but now merging it with the whole Offers-in idea. And basically, the deal with Investec Bank was to help them build an API for banking to the bank accounts. And then Offers-in would take care of building and managing a community around that API. So it was my job to, again, build a community that has access to this API, so Investec clients. But then I would run like a weekly meetup online and hackathons and those kind of stuff. So that was like 60 or so events in a year or two. And we built that community up to 300 developers.
Excellent. And
Okay.
Ben,
Yeah.
you've got such I realized that after Kazim asked you that question, it was a very, very dangerous question to ask, because having looked at your profile and your experience, you dive deep, right? So
Yeah.
what we wanted to do is really try and see if we can do the impossible. I've been
Yeah.
told impossible means I am possible. So
I love
if
that. I
we
had
were
that
to,
on my Twitter profile for a while. It's quite
did
crazy.
you?
Yes.
Excellent. So if we can bring it to something that we are both passionate about, right, which is we've had a lot of different journeys and a lot of different speakers. And I think one of the guys we had on here was called Marlon Parker, who's somebody that
Mm-hmm.
I believe you do know. What we try and get out of this is a lot of our audience look at our guests and they go, well,
Mm-hmm.
how did they get there and how can I do it if I want to get there? And
Yeah.
from a startup perspective, one of the things that we do know is that nothing is for free,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're trying to give it away for free. So, based on
Yes.
that journey and the work that you've been doing with startups, right? What I wanted to try and get and share, if you can, is
Mm-hmm.
when people are starting, typically, what sort of things should they be thinking about in terms of investment? So, like, I've got this idea, I've spoken
Mm-hmm.
to Ben, thinks it's great. Now I need to be in a position to actually do the startup. But as we
Mm-hmm.
know, this needs to be funded. So, what's your take guidance on maybe even a minimum amount or even the approach to
Yeah.
trying to get that initial startup fund?
Mm. It's a really interesting question. And I think people give very smart answers sometimes that sound great, and then the whole market changes, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I actually have no idea how to do this." So they kind of like in December last year, it was like anyone with a pitch deck was getting millions of dollars, and now it's like you can have like I recently tried to raise money. I had a full team of 8, who half of them were actually part of the SnapScan founding team, and we tried to raise money for a fintech, which it's like not even a fancy idea. It was an idea that is being done overseas, and it was hard to raise money for them. But the approach to that was going, we've got a team of 8. They're good and experienced. So and when I pitched this to people, they said, okay, focus on the fact that that's what you have. You have a team of 8 that's ready to go. They understand how to build product, but we needed to raise $3 million to cover the team for 24 months. So what we were selling there was like, it's not a crazy idea. It's a team of 8, and it's 24 months runway. So that's how much we need to keep this team happy and together, and then to do marketing. So to do that, I kind of went and looked at the Revolut Bank pitch deck and saw how they raised money and how they pitched themselves, and kind of stole a lot of ideas from that. So I think that gave me a good idea of how much they needed. And I think at the time they raised $2 million or something. And essentially they said, okay, we've got 25,000 people signed up, and we want to get to this many people registered with bank accounts within a 12-month period. And they reckoned, and they said, we need to hire these people. So they kind of budgeted out and wrote on a spreadsheet what amount they needed and where they would be spending that. So that's the thinking that I followed. I wrote down, what do we need to achieve the next level of what we want to achieve here. With SnapScan, that payments company, which was Fire ID Payments, had kind of made some money. So they didn't raise money. They just invested the money that they had made. Instead of paying themselves out and taking dividends out of the company, they just kind of said, okay, let's put in 3 months worth of salary to keep a team of 5 together, small salaries as well. enough to sustain everyone's costs. And in 3 months' time, we stick around, we see where we can get to, and we build as much as we can, and then we go and see if we need to raise again. I would tend towards like not raising money. And for my business now, I just to start making money, I've got a software contract with a university, and we're building stuff. And I'm not going to be raising money if I don't have to. But if you do have to raise money, I think it's about sketching out what you need to achieve to get you to the next level where you're going to raise money again. So for Revolut, they said, we want to get to a point where we spend $2 million and the next bunch of people want to give us $50 to $100 million. Because you don't want to raise $2 million and then go raise another $2 million and then go raise, and then you raise less and it just starts looking worse. You kind of want to go an order of magnitude up every time, at least aim for that. That's like kind of how I think about it.
Thank you very much for that answer. Kazim,
cool.
I guess it's over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben. So building on the last question that Sam just asked you now, which is around what a tech company should be, a startup especially now, should be focusing on. Many people now are interested in building their own startup, but building a successful business is not an easy task. It can be very challenging. So I want to ask you, Ben, what primary goal what is the primary focus that a startup should have? What should they be focusing on in order to have that best chance of running a successful startup business?
Right. So this is, I feel, something that I know more about than raising money. So I think, ironically, I've got a much shorter answer because I could probably got all these ideas about how you raise money, but not much experience. For this one, I gave a very short answer, and it was that you talk to customers and ship product is like the goal, basically. And you're basically running out of money until as a startup, you're like running out of money. So you need to talk to as many customers and ship as much product as you can before you essentially run out of money. And hopefully, if you talk to customers honestly and authentically, and you really care about solving their problem, and you manage to ship products that do solve their problem, then you talk in a way to customers that you understand you find their real pains and their real problems, because it's very easy to talk to customers and kind of find fake pains and fake problems because they want to be nice to you and they want to say, oh yeah, that's an interesting, you have all these ideas and they're like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'd love that. And you build it and then you give it to them and they're like, yeah, we might use that, but we're quite busy now. So if you talk to customers and you ship product in the right way, that I think is the best focus to have in a business or in a startup. And I mean, in my business now, I spend as much time as possible talking to our client, and the rest of my time goes into removing obstacles for my product team to ship product and work on product. And yeah, I think that's from Y Combinator. It's pretty respectable source, and like talk to customers, ship product. And yeah, my focus has been on talking to customers, and I convert that into clear communication as much as possible to people who ship product, so that they can hit the nail on the head, basically.
Fabulous. And I did have a question for you. And on this show, we try not to repeat something that we may have already got the answer to, but I'll play it back and just add a little bit. So in summary, from your previous one, you said you ship products and talk to customers. The way I've translated it based on all the information you've given so far is that it needs to be focused on the experience, but then you need something to give them in order to get the experience. I'm going to make it really strict for you in a fun way, right? So given that statement, would you agree or disagree?
Let me just check I got what you said. It's about the experience for them.
Through the products that you ship.
Yeah, I think it sounds about right to me. Thinking back to SnapScan, I rock up and I'm like, here's our product. It goes into a mobile money wallet. I don't want that. So on the spot, I kind of say, well, I know I can sign up the mobile money wallet in my name and I can deposit the money to their bank account. They won't ever know. So I just on the spot say, don't worry, it goes into your bank account now. So that's shipping product. Like the product is me later doing EFTs. And then one day further down the line, letting the dev team know that I've been cheating, and then we have to kind of solve the problem. But that's like a real-time version of talk to customers, ship product. Like they don't like giving them a mobile money wallet was not shipping the product because they're not going to use it. So I'm like, okay, I've decided you now have EFTs. That's shipping product. And they say, yes, we'll use that. And you can kind of
Okay.
say, okay, that's crazy. But then you can extrapolate that to when you've got a product team, they can kind of arrive and solve the problem that you've created. But the problem is internal. The customer experience, as you mentioned, is great for the customer. And people
Excellent.
respect you when
So
you do that because they're like, oh, you listened to me and you made a change. So then they love you.
fabulous. So, Kazim, I think that will be boiled down into market research, right? I don't want to call it cheating because no laws were technically broken in that scenario, but you learned your lesson around making sure that you are compliant. That's the get out of trouble clause I'm going to give you for the purpose of this show. But as I said, we could talk to you for forever. What I want to do is hand back to Kazim to really hone in on one of the key things of the show. So I won't give it away, but Kazim, I think you know where we're going. The clue for you is lessons.
Yes, exactly. So we shouldn't wrap up the show, right, without letting our audience learn from your wealth of experience now as someone who has been involved in many startups. So what lessons, Ben, can our audience learn from your wealth of experience now? What lessons do you want to leave our audience with? People who are going to be listening to this at a later time and they're thinking of building their own startup, or maybe something they're thinking to have at a
Yeah.
future date. What lessons do you want to leave us
Wow, that's a that's
with?
a that's a big question. I think if I wasn't me, I think what a lot of people say to me is, how do you know so many people, do so many things, uh, and you just do things? And to me, I'm like, yeah, well, that's not hard, you just kind of do things. And I think there's a kind of a lack of fear in me, in a way. I've been rejected so many times. What they don't see is that for every paying customer, every happy customer I bring in, there's 10, 20, 100 people who weren't interested, were anywhere between indifferent to me or angry with me for speaking to them, and were like, go away. And I've become better over time at like speaking to people in a way that they don't feel it's unsolicited. But at the end of the day, it's like I took on the mission of the company, like we have to get this done. And I lived that in like I try to live that in my day to day. I've had to set some boundaries in my life before and figure out like how to not make that unhealthy. But that has also, I can't say that hasn't helped me at least find the things that I would consider success in my life, and the things that I'm proud of is times when I got out there and I went to speak to customers, and 99% of the time it's incredible. You learn about people, you learn about businesses, you learn. I was just fascinated about these. At SnapScan, I got to meet the, the guys on the side of the street selling stuff. I got to meet some of the biggest companies in the country, their finance teams, and I was just fascinated about people and how they do things. But I was always just curious, and I was like, I'm here to understand and to learn, because and I mean, in retrospect, it's like I realize now how valuable that is, because no one could take that away from me. And I wasn't trying to get rich. I wasn't trying to, wasn't even often not even getting paid well. There was low chances of success, but I was loving it. And I was on a day-to-day basis. I was learning about people. And I was always, I mean, even I remember there was a shoe shiner at Standard Bank head office, and sometimes he was in the airport, and I set him up with SnapScan. And I was like seriously considering his way of life. I was like, really interested in him as a shoe shiner. I was like looking at this as like, you know, maybe I could be doing this, and how, you know, what's it like? So, and I mean, that's not to say that like shoe shining should be a dream, but it's just like I respected people working hard, and I really was grateful for that opportunity to learn. So I think I've changed my answer about 6 times already, but that curiosity, I was unafraid because all I was there to do was to learn, basically. And I think that's how I managed to speak to so many people and get so much done. Is I don't mind if you tell me I'm not interested in the thing that I'm selling, because what I am here for is like I'm interested to learn about you and what you're all about. Which unfortunately I haven't got to do much with you guys because you've been asking me all the questions.
Well, we will give you plenty of opportunities because we always say that we'll follow up and then we'll have other shows in the future.
Cool.
We've been learning a great deal from you, and I just wanted to play back and say that you didn't change your answers. What Kazim did was give you a loaded question. If we'd said, give us your top six, you would have probably struggled. So we're grateful that you gave us all of those variations
Yeah.
of the different things that you've learned.
Cool.
We would love to continue chatting to you, but we've come to the end of this particular episode. And I suppose the challenge we will set for you is maybe you and Marlon can come back, Mr. Parker, and we can have a jamming session.
I'd love that.
Right. So we can look into that. And, you know, I'm going to hand over to Kazim, but I was going to say it's amazing because when we talk about Africa,
Yeah.
there's so much coming out of there. But the biggest and most precious export of Africa, in my opinion, is the people and what they bring and share with the rest of the world. But on that note, let me hand over to Kazim and say thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. So again, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experience with us on the show today, Ben. So this is where we're going to call it a wrap on this episode of Africa Talks Tech. And it is myself and Sam saying thank you very much, and we see you again next time.
Thank you, guys. It's been awesome to hang out.
And you too, Ben.
Cool.